Okay. Hi, first of all. So, question. You've done a ton of video games, full slate of video games. I didn't notice on your primer anything anime. What have you done in anime?
I mean, anime, yeah.
If you don't mind me
like
being
missing,
so bold.
well, yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, that's like sort of a missing piece.
Okay.
I've no idea why my sort of niche has been games, because I read on a ton of stuff, But for whatever reason, like that's the lane I found myself traveling. But yeah, I couldn't tell you. Yeah.
Totally fine.
Other than sort of more broad kind of. Games which have been dubbed from Japanese, stuff like, Warriors Orochi and stuff like that, which kind of sort of leans a little bit, more in that direction perhaps, but yeah.
Sure.
Orochi.
You were Orochi?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't.
But that's old, I mean, that's...
That's one of my favorite series. I followed that from the very first one. So,
cool, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say your background would be, as far as, like how you got into, necessarily not even, voice acting, but like what is your actual...
My background is I went to drama school, and my final year of drama school I got an agent, and they did voiceover as well as theater and on camera and stuff, so I started doing mainly like commercial voiceover and that sort of stuff, promos, and then when I moved to LA in 2003. Because I do like to work with sort of characters and action voices and stuff. Then I found myself booking games,
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh wow, okay. So I found this sort of sweet spot doing that. But it wasn't like I specifically chose that. But it's like that's what sort of opened up for me, which is pretty sweet, yeah. And I guess it probably the biggest game that I worked on. The first big game I worked on was Final Fantasy 12. As Balthier, and then it was really really cool start to kind of get a taste of like a character that lives and breathes beyond just like maybe one session, because a lot of video games may employ an actor for like one session, which is typically a 4-hour session, obviously larger roles you got more time and you get to see more of a character develop and stuff, so that was pretty sweet, yeah.
So you've been so you're here on the con circuit here, meeting with the fans and things like that. Like for you, what is your reaction to meeting people who the fans out here and the cons? Like going out to the cons. Like what is one of your favorite? What are some of your favored things coming to these cons?
I'm always nervous going to a con, but as long as I got my little furry friend, so good, because stay. Now, if my dog at home behaved like this, I'd be so chuffed. No, the best thing about going to a con is seeing the impact that a character you voiced or a character you played has had on somebody. Because it still amazes me how big a deal that can be, and I guess in a ways, because I'm a little bit older than most of the people who come and say hi. Games I grew up playing were sort of first person. Sort of shootery, like early Delta Force, but before that, like Asteroids and like old classes like that, where there weren't characters to play or follow, or it wasn't like a real narrative where you'd maybe perhaps get to relate to or empathize with or have some kind of catharsis or learn from or be challenged by, and so. A lot of games, I think, offer that to people, and they offer a means of expression or an outlet, or some sort of like solace and stuff, So that's really cool, Just people sharing kind of personal things, and a lot of times it seems that characters help people through a tough time, or at least people express that, perhaps more than just hey, it's fun to play, And that's amazing to me continually that. Games and also obviously on-camera roles can have that kind of impact, and so it's humbling, and it's lovely to be able to meet people face to face and experience that, because most of what I do is in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So if I go into a voice booth, it's just me on my own. Even though I'm playing in a scene with other characters, it's still just me recording on that day. I'm not playing with the other actors because everyone's recorded separately. So it is nice to. To get that feedback too, which is kind of encouraging.
for you, like when you're hitting the con circuits, like for the fans who come to see you or come to talk to you, what character that you played do you think has like the biggest like draw with people who are like, oh my god, you're from Teen Wolf, or you're the guy who got decapitated from Wilson Fisk in Daredevil? Like, what's the character you think you played that's really like the popular?
I think Fenris from Dragon Age 2, seems to have been the biggest one. I mean, he was a character that could be romanced, he could be romanced by a man or a woman, and that was pretty groundbreaking at the time, he was just this fun sort of troubled character who'd been through some stuff, and a little world weary and battered and bruised, but still, had this charm about him. So I feel he, and by virtue of the fact that, you could romance his character, I think he, came into people's lives who did play that game and choose to romance that character specifically. I get a lot of people bringing like fan art and stuff, or sharing, how they enjoy playing him. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You were talking about Final Fantasy XII. One of my favorite Final Fantasies, in my top 5 or 6, Final Fantasy XII is definitely there. I've always wondered what the process of working with Square Enix is like. I'm not personally trying to get into that. I've just always wondered. A few people who I've spoken to now have worked for them. It's one of my favorite companies to have games from. So I was just wondering what the experience was like working with a company like Square Enix, doing that role for such a very monumental, very groundbreaking game.
I mean, Jack Fletcher was the voice director for that game, and we'd go in. He was really, he really sort of held my hand through it, and he'd be there with, one of the, the guys from Square Enix, and then oftentimes they'd be calling, Japan or whatever to, get feedback on stuff. I mean, it's a different sort of animal when you're dubbing a game too, because you have to, you have to fit into, sometimes, flaps that aren't, animated for English, or if they are going to reanimate some flaps. I don't think they did reanimation for Final Fantasy XII. I know, for instance, like for Final Fantasy VII, the remake, which is coming out soon, which I'm in as Biggs, that they're redoing the flaps, the mouth flaps. But for 12, it wasn't so. Like, oftentimes we'd have to sort of tweak the dialogue a little bit, as we went, to make it fit more organically, but it still has to fit, in this perfect time. It's a bit of a roundabout answer to Square Enix, but it was very hands-on, and it felt like a lot of care was taken. I often say that there's almost more time taken to a take or a scene, if you will, for voicing a game than sometimes there might be for on camera. And probably that's the nature of it, because it's a lot more expensive to make, to shoot on camera, to like TV or film, because there's, amount of crew and set and, locations and these kinds of things. Whereas, okay, you're going in for a video game, it's like, okay, we've got studio, we've got our engineer, and then we've got the actor, on a given day. So, and obviously the, peeps from the studio, but it's a much, much smaller, stripped down thing, So, but I do love the fact that they took a lot of time and care. Not all games at that time when 12 came out, were doing that. And then also, it's a, hats off to the genre as well. The fantasy sort of game where it's narrative driven and character driven a little more than, the blow things up games.
Yeah. Speaking of, since you brought up Final Fantasy VII Remake, just knowing just what that means to so many people across the world, just be the one that everybody's constantly been asking Square to, be making things like that. What was? I don't know what you can honestly say about the game yet, because obviously, since it's not out, I know NDAs and all that other stuff. But what was the experience of knowing what this game means and sort of being able to work on that? Were you guys able to see? Was there finished animation while you were working on it? What was the process of working on this game basically at this time?
Right. There was some animation for Final Fantasy VII. Some stuff there is, some stuff there isn't. Here and there, and this goes for all games. Another actor might have recorded lines in the same scene, in which case they can play you in. If it's a response to something another character says, which is always nice. Otherwise you're just kind of imagining what they might say, or how they might deliver it rather. It was so maybe 75% of stuff I guess was animated already, but not finished, but at least to give us stuff to work from, and then at least there was definitely a sense of the characters and how they looked, and the way, the body language and that kind of stuff. So that definitely helps him for what I'm going to bring to it. In terms of how big it's going to be taking on something like that, I try not to think about that sort of stuff, because it doesn't help. It doesn't help me any, because then I'd sort of get myself all messed up, like if I was to step into I was having a chat with a Lyft driver who took me to the airport to come here, and I don't know, we were talking about acting or something, and he was saying it's tough now with the Joker. It's like whoever comes in to play Joker now, it's like, man, the bar's been set so high. It's like, where do you go? What do you do now? And I imagine, exactly, stepping into that world, it's like DC, Universal, Marvel, or something now, where it's a pre-existing character, and it's been done a few times. That's got to be really tough, But this sort of stuff, it's easier in a sense for me to avoid those materials and just try and just do my own thing and be guided by the director. That was a long answer, right? I'll just chat away, So I got a little kid at home, so it's rare I get to interact with adults. So I can chat.
I just wanted to ask one more.
Go for it.
Okay, so when it comes to, we're talking about the having a lead in to another line sometimes, and things like that. I've always been curious about the voice acting process when it comes to something like that. In a situation like this, where you like you said, you're in a box doing your thing. How do you then, when that's not the case, when you don't have something that you can do that with, how do you go about knowing how you want to react to this? Obviously, you have the voice director, but then how do you bring your own spin to that?
I guess a two-part answer. Directors are really good in video games these days about setting a scene. So now they know, the whole backstory, and hopefully, someone from the studio's there, so a writer usually. So they know the full backstory of the game and the history and the characters and where they're going and where they are at any given point, because you're not always going, you're almost never going chronologically, so it's like, okay, this scene is here. Now what's just happened is you all went down the tunnels, and there was that whole thing with a blah, 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 and thingy, and then so-and-so went missing, and it's like, now we're regrouping, so okay, and I'll often, ask questions and stuff like, okay, now why am I saying this line? Because sometimes you might get lines, dialogue, where it only gives you your lines. A lot of times that might be the case, which is that's kind of useful, but if you imagine, except for this thing where I'm just doing monologues. But for the most part, a conversation like you have with a friend or something, if you only had your side of the conversation, it's kind of like, well, I can kind of imagine what the other people are saying, but I might be, making the wrong assumption. So there's, a fair amount of question asking from me, probably more than I need to. And then, in terms of putting your own spin, definitely you try and find the character in that first session, in the beginning. And just go from there, and then I do trust a lot that the director's going to guide me if I hang off the rails, because you don't get like if I go do a movie, I've got a full script. If I go do an episode of TV, I've got the full script, even if I'm only working in 6 scenes or something, but at least I know what other people might be saying about the character and where I'm going and where I've come from, sort of thing. So there's more of a dialogue with the creators and stuff and the director for games for that reason.